Peace and blessings to you. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. And so are the two gentlemen who are sitting on the screen before you. Excellent musicians who we're going to introduce in just a few seconds. We have a dynamic show here for you at the EntreMusician. So grateful they both came on. But before we get into that dialogue, let's do this. As you know, all of our videos are sponsored by the wonderful people at Vocal. Vocal is the only beverage on the planet designed to soothe, refresh, and restore your voice. If you talk all day or sing all night, you got to get yourself some Vocal. Go to drinkvocal.com to learn more. I am excited today because I did a vocal challenge, Spotify challenge, not a vocal challenge, but a Spotify challenge about a month ago where I was trying to learn. I had spent 2 years demonizing Spotify. I hated Spotify, and I told everybody I met, if you talked to me more than 30 seconds, you would know that I hated Spotify. So I put out a challenge because people in Ohio don't seem to be making money from Spotify. In fact, I'll tell you this, and then we'll introduce these guys, is my business manager. One day came to me with a statement and said, what the heck are all these zeros? 0.0007 per stream. She says, I'm not counting this. So we started pulling our music from Spotify because what the heck doesn't work for musicians. I issued the challenge right here on YouTube, and I got this gentleman below. His name is Pete Rice, or Peter Rice, or better known as Vector Hold, who's an excellent, absolutely excellent musician, said, hey, dude, I'm making money from Spotify. Well, wait a minute. Here's this other dude over here. His name is Brian Travis. Brian wrote a song, and this is a family-friendly show, guys, but Brian wrote a song that said, go blankety blank yourself, Spotify. And I thought, whoa, maybe we can have an opportunity to get these guys on. This is Pete Rice down below, Brian Travis, both from California. Listen, both excellent musicians. My nose is brown enough. I don't have to kiss butt or say anything I don't mean. Their stuff is the jam, and I want them to introduce themselves to you. Let's start to my left with Brian Travis. Brian, what's happening, brother?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on, man. Down below is the wonderful Pete Rice, Vector Hold. What's happening, brother?
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me on, too.
You cats rock in your own way. Now, you're from Vallejo, Brian, and
Yes.
You're from San Francisco, Pete. So you guys could
Yeah,
actually...
San Francisco, San Jose.
You guys can get together and collaborate because Brian is doing some hardcore country funk juice. It's like excellent. His stuff, How, is on point. And Pete down below is doing all kinds of stuff from 80s retro wave to that beautiful jazz stuff that you did on 7 Day Forecast. I'm in love with both of you guys.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So Pete, tell me how did you get started in music?
Well, like back in the 90s, early 90s, I got involved. I just wanted to play bass guitar and be in like punk bands and, just be, a young musician and stuff. And then from there, I started my own band. We went on tour for about 5 years. I was like a ska punk band. And then after that happened, I got involved with the DJ rave culture and I became a drum and bass DJ. Then I got bored with that and I decided I wanted to start making music on my own. So technology got better with computers and digital audio workstations. So I got involved with that. Then I got bored with that. Then I started joining metal bands. Then I got into metal bands for the good part of the 2000s. Then in 2011, I got bored of that and started going back to electronic music. And then I started making these kind of 80s throwback jams that were just kind of, they came natural to me. And from there is where I got involved with the synthwave scene that emerged about 8-10 years ago.
Gee, Mani. Okay, so Brian, what did you get bored with? Pete got bored like 9 times.
Well, I've gotten burnt out. I don't know if I ever got bored, but I started playing music probably in the early 90s as well. I'd been turned on to music from being inspired by an 80s band called The Alarm. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of those guys, but they had some hits in the 80s. They're still going strong. Actually went to San Francisco 2 nights ago and saw them play at the Regency Ballroom. And I lost my voice. I need some of that vocal drink.
Hey, I'll get you some, baby. I'll get you some.
Yeah. So I was screaming, singing at the top of my lungs the other night. And, my voice is a little rough, so apologies for that. But no, I started playing the acoustic guitar and harmonica. The stuff I write is kind of Americana folk rock, kind of Tom Petty-ish and Neil Youngish, with a little bit of urgency and 90s kind of alternative mix in there. So yeah, I'm mostly a songwriter, and I write a lot, and I've had many bands backing me up. The Brian Travis Band primarily. I was in a few bands before that, but the Brian Travis Band is the longevity one. I've been working with my own project for many years. We've toured the UK a couple of times, and we've toured up and down the coast. But it's been about 3-4 years since I've been doing anything with my full band. I kind of hit a wall, got burned out, and have been writing and recording a bunch of new stuff here at a studio space where I live. I live at the in a building that has a studio in it. It's an artist loft for artists, and I got very lucky with that. And so I'm working on 3 projects right now. I'm working on like my own stuff for my next release. I'm working on a country record, a full-on straight country record, and I'm also working on a collection of twisted children's music that I quite enjoy making. It's a lot of fun.
So, in today's vernacular, twisted children is going to need some explanation. So we'll save that for another show. Okay.
Sure. Okay. I mean,
but you have 6 albums. Yes. Victor Hold has 8 albums. And again, as I said before, you guys are absolutely, the production was on point. The writing is absolutely hysterical. Very good stuff. And sounds great. Just sounds wonderful. So it's a delight to talk to true musicians as we have this conversation. Now, I want to give Spotify the winning hand. I issued the challenge and Pete answered. How long have you been on Spotify? How is it working for you? And why would you recommend it to other EntreMusicians?
I got on Spotify in 2015. I've been doing what I'm doing before that, but that became into prominence at that time. And the record label that I'm on uploads all that stuff for me and takes care of it. And the way it works for me is that I came from a scene of other synthwave artists who all sort of support each other. And what they do is they all kind of come together. And then what you have to do is when you put your stuff on Spotify is that you've got to get on as many playlists as possible. That's what gives you the amount of plays that you get. That's how you get spread out. It's all about forming a collective with tons of other people and making it work. It's kind of like what you put into it is what you get out of it. You got to check your stats. The more content albums you have up there, and like I said, the more playlists that you can get on, the more plays you get.
Well, let me ask this question then. You said that the record label that you're on is doing that work for you. So you're not checking the stats and doing that stuff yourself, getting on the playlist. You actually have a company who's performing those tasks for you?
What they do is they upload the content for me, but I have a profile where I can see my stats. I can see who's listening to it right now. I can see how many plays I had yesterday or up until 5-7 years ago. I have all access to everything, so I'm not blocked or anything from seeing what's going on. So they're open with sharing everything with me. They just take care of all the distribution, artwork, duplication, CDs, LPs, all that stuff. But with that in return, you have to give back, I think, I do about 15-20% back to it.
Mm-hmm. So now the purpose of the challenge, and then we'll talk to Brian, but the purpose of the challenge when I issued it was that anyone who responded to it was at least making $100 a month. So without throwing your business out in the street, you're at least making $100 a month from Spotify.
I'm making well over that. I'm making probably I get a PayPal payment from the label at about $2,000 every 6 months, something about there. But that's spread. That's not just from Spotify. I think that's from like iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, all things measurable. But the Spotify is where all the plays seem to be coming from. That seems to be the dominant source.
Okay, fair question, and then I promise I'm going to go to Brian. But fair question then is: do you think, because we're talking about and talking to musicians who don't have access to a record company as you do, or any company? Most of us are out here as lone rangers. Do you think that without the benefit or aid of the company, from Spotify specifically, streaming services being what they are, that you would be getting the revenue if you had to do it all yourself? I'm not, again, I'm not trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but do you think because of this unique situation you have, this is the best bet for me or Brian or the guy on the other side of the screen that's watching, that they should do if they want to have any benefit or asset at all from Spotify?
Like I said, it's, you make it work the way you want it to work. Like you can't just throw stuff on Spotify and then just all of a sudden expect to have a bunch of people to like listen to your music. Sure. Or, get things, you got to promote it, you got to spam, not spam, that's the wrong word. You got to promote your music on like all your social media sites. You got to get traffic in there. I know dudes that do stuff that I do, and they're just as popular, but they don't have that support. But they do okay. It's about every 2-3 months or something like that. They bring about $270, something like that. It's enough to put back and buy some new headphones or something like that. But it's all about making it work for yourself. Just put the time in and stuff like that. Spotify, they don't pay shit. That's the bottom line. But you just make it work the way you got to make it work. You got to go in the hustle with it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's like anything else. If you're going to do a gig, you got to practice, make your best presentation on stage. Now, Brian, I don't know whether or not you have had experience with Spotify. I mean, you were pretty ticked off when you wrote that song. Well, was that from experience?
Yeah, I do have all my records are on Spotify. I have uploaded them, the different services I've worked with, CD Baby and or a few other ones I've worked with. They all have the same thing. They upload them all to all of the streaming services, and then they're available. And Pete's absolutely right. I mean, you get out of it what you put into it. So you've got to hustle, and you've got to promote, and you've got to do all of those things. I did all of those things for upwards of 15, almost 20 years, and I just reached a point of burnout. So now I don't do a lot of that as much as I used to, or as fervently as I used to, because there's tons of social media. You've got to have all the different pages, and you've got to be posting your stuff on different pages, and you've got to keep it interesting. And I just started feeling like I was annoying people by always telling them about my stuff, And I just kind of, I don't know, I hit a wall with all that. But it is absolutely true. You upload your stuff, and then it is really up to you to do all of the things. Everything Pete's doing is really smart, getting your songs on playlists and all of that. I never really delved into it to that degree in order to, I just did kind of put it out there to see where it went. But I've got a YouTube, a video page, and that's one thing that I have started doing is I've been making videos now of my songs, putting them out there, realizing that I'm reaching a lot more people via my YouTube page and my YouTube channel than I was ever reaching by playing to my same 30, 40 fans live in LA, So you make a video and you can also see which songs are stronger because of the reaction that it gets. But you do have to put it out there, get people to look at it. Another thing that I've noticed is that you have to, if you have a video for one of your songs, people are more likely to listen to the song because you have a visual to it. You can't just put a SoundCloud link out there and people just, they don't have the attention span, or they don't have the wherewithal to go, oh, I want to hear this new song by this artist. If you have a video for it, which is why I made that little cute animation video for that song about Spotify,
Sure.
And that song really came from frustration, like that came from hearing the news that Spotify was fighting the legislation to pay artists more because the Music Modernization Act, had been passed. There was legislation that had passed that wanted artists to be, in the favor of artists, in the favor of creators and songwriters.
Correct.
And I was like, hey, this is great, And then, of course, Spotify came out saying that they actually want to lower the amount that they're paying people. And so I was just like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to blast them. Spotify gets so much hate already. And I just kind of wrote that song. And like I said, it was just something that just showed up. I mean, songs sometimes fall out of you, And so I read that news, and then I ended up writing that song, and I was like, oh, this kind of has a Weezer feel to it. I'm gonna record it, make a video, put it online, and I did, and now I'm here talking to you guys. So that's it's true. The more work you put into what you're doing, it gets noticed, and then you end up getting more opportunities. So what Pete's doing is really, really smart. And when I am recovered from all this burnout I've been experiencing, I'll be hitting it, because the tools are actually becoming they're better than they were when I got into this business in the 90s. The internet road was unpaved, and
Sure.
now it's really a lot more that the tools are all there in place. So if you can utilize them, think outside of the box, start doing things to promote yourself in a way that's creative that other people aren't doing, you can really do a lot for yourself.
Well, let me ask this question of the both of you, because with respect to, Pete admitting that, it is you putting in the work and then getting results from it. But, about 6 months ago, maybe closer to 8 months, I watched the sad state of no less than Smokey Robinson sitting in front of Congress and, really trying to work on some legislation to be better for the, content creators, the songwriters. And I thought, Smokey Robinson is testifying before Congress. What a sad state of music we're in. Aside from your winning, Pete, not trying to hit you with a loaded question, but aside from your winning with Spotify, what is your current assessment of the music industry? I mean, do you feel that we're better off now as Lone Rangers, independents, or were we better when we were getting hit the other way by the record companies?
I think maybe a long time ago, like 60s, 70s, and 80s worked because it gave more prominence to real artists. And I've noticed that in the last 20 years, it's pop music, and anything that's on the radio is total garbage. And it's all a packaged deal. It's a product. It's like Coca-Cola or Budweiser or Hostess Ding Dongs. It's just like, okay, let's package this up and sell it and sell the units. Let's get these pushed. So stuff you hear on the radio isn't that good, and it doesn't appeal to people who don't like that kind of style of stuff. It's just all formulated, and this whole force feeding this like you go to the supermarket, you got to hear that crap, But I think it's better now the way it is, because artists on their own can do what they want, and they can kind of gauge, there's more artistic freedom, but there's less chances of those people being heard because of what's going on in pop radio culture. It's just right now it's sort of like the Wild West again. You have to go and find what you like, and you have to go and actually search out and do these things. It's difficult. It takes time, but it's cool because it's kind of rewarding. You get to discover somebody and then discover them and then discover them. And then you kind of just, you have your own thing, that nobody else is like, has touched with their both hands, So that's what I think.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. Is there anything that either of you think we can do as musicians to better bolster our prominence in this wild, wild west? For example, I had talked to our internet service provider, Bandzoogle, about creating streaming channels for the individual band or artist on their own website to be streaming. So that way it cuts out that Spotify, that Pandora, that middleman. Because if you set up the website and you can have the space to say, I've got 6 albums. If you want everything that I have, pay me the $9.99. You know what I mean? So anybody want to attack?
I think Brian should take that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and there always has been a middleman. You know, even in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like where you're saying, yes, it was better then, you know, and now we're all independent and we're all kind of keep putting together our own niche, you know, markets for our music, and people are finding us and everything. And that is true. It's all very Wild Westy, and you know, you build up your own product, your own brand. But back in the day, when the record labels, there used to be a gatekeeper, you know, and so they you know, you have to get signed, you get put on a label, the label would give you support, and it was great for some bands because some bands could actually, you know, they would invest. And then those bands could really, really go deep with their stuff and have a team, you know, promoting them. And there wasn't as much. There was like 3 TV stations and there was radio. So, you know, what got put out there got to everybody's ears. Now there's a million, you know, streaming services. There's a million things which people pay attention to. So you kind of get lost out in the sea of content. But yeah, if there was less. If there was a way to do it individually, I think, you know, websites, people, if they bought my music directly from my website, that all that money goes to me, you know.
Right,
But
exactly.
if it does it on Spotify, I get a small percentage, you know. So yeah, and at the beginning of all this, that's kind of the way it worked. I had a MySpace page. I booked a whole entire tour off of MySpace, you know, and there wasn't as much of this. So yeah, I had an email list, and I'd email people, and it would go directly to them. They would go visit my website. They would download my music. Now there's so much, and everyone's your email inbox, you know, you don't even pay attention to because so many. You're on so many lists, there's so much spam and everything that people don't really respond as much to that kind of promotion. So there was a time in my career where I was doing really well by playing music, selling my physical CDs and selling the stuff from my website and doing all of that. And those days are kind of over now because people aren't buying physical product anymore. They're streaming it and whatnot. But so I don't know how you would do that kind of non-middleman thing to have a streaming service. I mean, for me, it's your own website. It's your own URLs that you have in place. Yeah.
So there have been some bands who, and this is one on the shelf that I'm exploring, but one item there are some bands who are creating their own apps so that their app, you know, on the phone, because again, nobody's at their laptop, nobody's at their desktop, but they have their phone on them all the time. And then they could just like hit the app, pay the subscription fee, and it's done. So that's one way, you know. And
it's very much like, you know, we have to use the tools that are here now. I mean, this.
The other thing is Bitcoin too. Was talking to, had an interview with a young man about a month ago, and he is really selling cryptocurrency for content creators to get into that space.
Yeah, I've heard about that. That's very interesting. That for sure is something to look into because by he's marketing his songs and accepting cryptocurrency, and I've heard about a few different platforms that are doing that, and I think that could be very well the future.
So let me ask, Pete, are you a performing artist or are you like a Steely Dan where all your content is coming out of the studio? Do you go out and gig?
Yeah, I played Friday night and I played yesterday. I perform probably about 10 to 15 gigs a year. I tour up and down the West Coast, up to Oregon and Washington, LA, wherever I can play. And it's mostly in that synthwave scene. If I play shows outside of that scene, people don't really seem to quite get it. It's not anybody's fault or anything, but I just noticed that step outside of what that genre is, it kind of confuses people a little bit of what's going on. But yeah, gigging and studio work.
So what Brian said earlier, and we were talking about this beforehand as well, but the physical product is dead. Do you find that where you gig too, is you don't sell CDs, you don't sell any product at all?
I sell mostly T-shirts, stickers, antenna balls, just your crap, just like stuff, But
Wow.
I noticed that sometimes people buy CDs, but what they're really into, which is back again, is the vinyl record. The vinyl's like really big right now, and that's kind of what everybody wants. But the only problem with that, ordering that stuff is really expensive, and the lead time takes forever. And the only place I know is out in like the Czech Republic or something like that. It takes forever for that to happen, and then you take a risk buying them because you don't know if they're going to sell. So it's sort of like, what do you do? But it just seems to be vinyl's king again.
So
do you have that for a couple of years?
Do you have to order 1,000 or 2,000 and have them sitting in your basement?
Yeah. Last band I was in, we ordered hundreds of these things, and we only sold maybe 10. And I took all the old records and I sent them to record stores and just basically said, sell them for free. We ended at a loss. But with something like that, you have to play shows in order to sell vinyl. That's how it is. A lot of people don't buy them online.
Pete, Brian, you had some experience with wanting to get into.
Well, I believe that the CD really is over. They don't even put CD players in cars. The next record I press is actually going to be a physical record. It's going to be vinyl for sure. And I know that there's a big expense up front, but I found that at concerts, at live shows, that's what people will buy. They will physically buy a record. Even if they don't have a record player, they'll buy it because vinyl is so hot right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
They want to have that physical thing.
I was going to ask, so who's selling the record players? Who's selling the turntables now? You know what I mean?
Well, it's a big deal, man. There's Record Store Day every year in May or in April, and it's become very, very hot. A lot of collectors, are buying turntables, and people are listening to their warm vinyl at home. It's definitely a thing that's happening. And at the concert I was at on Friday, all 3 bands had vinyl releases that they were selling at their shows.
Gee, many. Well, let's go back to Spotify, Pandora, iTunes streaming just for a minute, because we know the cat is out of the bag. You're not going to take the cat and stranglehold it and put it back in the bag again. This is where we are. However, do you think, because I just digitally signed both ASCAP and BMI's please sign for the Music Modernization Act, do you think we are making headway, or are we going to be, and excuse the pun, I don't mean this racially, but are we going to be slaves forever to the third man, to that middleman? Are we going to break free? Do you guys see the future? I'm looking for optimism here, guys.
I'm thinking maybe somebody with some good business sense needs to come in and figure all that out. If somebody has a vision and they could get that dialed in, then I think things could really take off. But until then, we're at like a holding pattern until that next wave comes along and the new trend of music business management starts happening.
I get it.
Somebody will figure it out. Somebody will figure it out.
Well, Pete, I was hoping it would be you, man. I hope that when you got on today, you'd be like, dudes, I got the answer. Here it is.
We're all playing
I'll figure it out. No, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, what were you saying, Brian?
I was just saying we're all playing catch up with all this technology, right? And not just in music, every form of art form. This internet thing. It's a big giant social experiment, and we're all playing catch up to the technology. And eventually, the Music Modernization Act was a huge step forward to kind of go, hey. The publishing stuff hasn't been updated since the days of player pianos, you know. So here we go. We're in the modern age. This is the way it is. Like you said, we can't go backwards. So let's work with the tools we have and let's figure it out. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, yes, optimistically, hopefully that will happen. However, I just have to say, because it's true, you know, the musicians have always been the last one to get paid. It's always been kind of like there's been this other industry that kind of, you know, the artist is the people who create the music that the whole industry profits off of. It gets the short end of the stick. And, you know, people like Taylor Swift, honestly, like she's been doing actually a lot of good for the business, and a lot of artists who are standing up and talking about these things. So we could have a bit of a revolution, and the business kind of like wises up and goes, look, we're not going to have artists if they're all killing themselves trying to stay afloat to do this. You know, I mean, because that's another thing that kind of bugs me a lot is that a lot of the bands that are getting paid to on the road and stuff are tribute bands where they're playing the music of The Who, Tom Petty, Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac, these legacy artists who wrote original music back in the day and did very well for themselves. Now there's original artists now that are getting the short end of the stick, and a club would rather hire a tribute band than an original artist and pay the original artist. If you're an original artist who does all the original music like myself, you know, they're like, well, we'll pay you a very little bit, or you have to pay to play here, you know. And so it's just it's very strange things, because the reason why we love those bands like The Cure are because they had an original sound that no one else sounded like. And now we revere them, but now it feels like the industry is kind of like not giving the newer artists who have that original music a chance.
Okay, so, you know, Pete, what's your answer, man? You got the solution. I know it. He set you up big.
I don't know. It's unpredictability and unpredictable times. Anything's possible.
Creating a scene, Pete, the way you have, and playing within that scene is really smart. You're doing it right by reaching out to other people who have like-minded genres and kind of playing shows together and doing all those things. That's how to do it. The show I saw on Friday was an 80s band, The Alarm, and they were playing with Modern English and Gene Lowe's Jezebel, two 80s bands, and they packed the place. Granted, the 80s are huge right now because of Stranger Things, but you know, that's what you do. You get with like-minded thing, you put packages together and you go out and you do it. And there are ways to do it. And you do have to kind of, you know, kind of link up with other artists and build up a scene. And that is one way to do it, as Pete is saying.
It's just like they always say, you know, it's building a community. You know, the community takes care of itself. You come together, and that's how the bridges are formed. That's how the connections are made. It's simple. So it's the simplest thing in the world. Just bring a community together. People come out. Artists rise to the top.
They support each other. Right.
Well, here's what I'm going to ask of the two of you, because you're so close geographically. You got to, first of all, check out each other's music. I did from here in Ohio. I fell in love with the both of you. I mean that. You're going to see me, you know, email or text and hit you guys up on your platforms, because the stuff is very, very good. And I hope that, you know, maybe there's some collaboration that would happen as a result of this, because, you know, I got to put the plug in. That's what the EntreMusician is all about. I mean, engage, encourage, and empower each other. I don't have all the answers, so I seek it out and go, you know, and I'm going to be seeking out more questions as we go along here, because something else is being lost in this whole process of no physical, whether they're books or CDs or vinyl, because vinyl is going to go the way of the 8-track again. I know it's cyclical and it's good now, but the investment for the artist is crazy. But here's the thing, and I'm going to ask the two of you a question, but here's the thing that I see is, and I wrote a blog about this a couple months ago, it's called The Death of Access. because again, looking at that entity that owns and controls the distribution of everything, they can pick and choose, the proverbial they can pick and choose for you what is accessible, because you don't have a CD collection anymore or a vinyl collection like we used to. Then, okay, this is good. And Pete talked about that earlier, the crap they put on the radio. This is what you get, because we're going to deny you access to the other stuff. Was there a question in there somewhere?
Well, so you can't curate your own stuff, anymore. Yeah.
Correct. You can't, because everything is being put forth for you. You pay $9.99 for this, $9.99 for that, but we have the library and we can give you access to what we think you need.
We're one of the thing outlets that are really good for people who want to, find music is the last bastion of it is college radio. You listen to a lot of college radio and they'll play whatever the DJ wants to play. They have full control over it. And these corporate entities, they don't even know that. They want to sell their product. They want to sell their advertising. But I listen to a lot of college radio, especially like there's a station out here called 89.7 KFJC that plays a lot of experimental music. They do a lot of weird stuff. And I've been turned on to a lot of good music just from college radio and internet radio and all that stuff. And that's what I stick with. I stay away from all the other stuff. I just go with what I like. And that's it.
I can dig it. Now tell me, both of you gentlemen, in the time that we have left, what question did you hope that I would have asked of you personally or of the topic, and we didn't hit it? So let's start with Brian. Was there a question you thought or a topic related to the streaming stuff that I should have hit?
Yeah, the streaming stuff. I mean, I kind of wanted to bring up Tidal. Have you heard of Tidal?
Yeah, Jay-Z's company.
Yeah. That one was the one I first heard of that actually does pay the artist the most out of all of the ones. So if you are going to stream, I always tell people to get yourself a Tidal subscription, because that was created by musicians, and they really, was their point with it. And I know that Apple Music is good too, and I think Spotify was the one that pays the least, which is why they get so much hate. But I did want to bring up the Tidal is an actual. They have some integrity as far as paying the artists.
Interesting thing though, Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, is a drummer.
Yeah. Daniel Ek confuses and confounds me, but
but he's a drummer. I thought,
yeah, is he a drummer or does he make beats?
Well, I thought he was a drummer, actual drummer, because from one drummer to another, that's my primary instrument. And I had back in the day, like I said, when my business manager brought in the statement, I was kind of having an email conversation with him, and I thought I gave him the analogy, and Pete we're definitely coming to you, but I gave him the analogy of a car manufacturer, who we're going to make these great cars, but we're going to stiff the tire manufacturer. How are you going to have a car with no tires on it? If the music is the foundation of your business, it should be more of a partnership.
I think sometimes business becomes less about the person and more about this thing that you've created that seems to be going and getting bigger and growing. Not out of your control, but like you get investors and you get all these things and you feel like you have a responsibility to create it. And business just tries to do business, and the human element obviously goes away. And business isn't evil per se. It's doing what it was set up to do, to make money. And then the people who it's bowling over to do that are just, it doesn't have a heart, it just grows.
But you got to admit, there would be no Spotify, Pandora, Apple, iTunes if it were not for the songs. It's the songs that are the transmission for all of this.
That is the real thing. It's like the stuff that we make, the music that we make, there would be none of these businesses without the artists who create it. So why wouldn't you take care of the artists? That confounds me.
So Pete, what question or, what did you think I would bring up and I missed it, and you want to bring that to fore?
Pirated BitTorrent illegal downloads. That was a big problem with the Napster thing, 20 years ago, maybe less than that. I mean, that's what squashed the whole industry. That's what really came in and wiped it out. Was that, you didn't need to
vilified for saying that.
Yeah, you don't need to pay for anything anymore. And so then from there, that's when everything kind of collapsed. And then, finally somebody came up with these internet radio stations to come up with something. But, I think somewhere along the line, it fell apart because of that. And I don't know. I mean, I'd rather somebody pay 12 cents to listen to something than get it for free, because I know that in my genre, all that stuff is available for free to download off BitTorrent sites. And, I see it all the time. I see my stuff on there, and I know people are doing it, but, I sit there and go, well, what can I do? That's why I try to get them to the streaming sites, keep them off those BitTorrent sites, I mean, if people can't afford an album, I kick down free codes all the time on my Bandcamp, all the time. I try to keep those people away from those things. And plus, I don't want to see people screw up their computers with viruses and stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, but whatever. Yeah.
It's hard to compete with free, so
yeah.
it's amazing. I always compared it to like McDonald's. Let's say there's a McDonald's. You go there and you give them the money, before you get the service. It's like, what if there was another McDonald's right next door that gave you the same burger for free? That you'd go out of business. It's ridiculous. Yeah, but so you're right. So streaming, well, even though maybe the songwriters aren't getting a lot, we are getting paid per song, and that is a huge step up from the BitTorrents and the pirating of music. Yeah.
Right.
I just would like to see the songwriters get paid, what they're worth for creating the actual songs that people like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I thank you so much for taking time out this afternoon to hang out with us and give your perspective on streaming and the state of it. There may be an opportunity as we, move into 2020 that I phone you guys up or, email you and say, hey, let's try to do something else, or this has changed, or the Music Modernization Act has taken a turn, hopefully for the better, and we can get back on and talk about the state of things. But please promise me that you'll check each other's music out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm going to make sure in the comment box below that I have links to a couple of your songs there. My favorite, man, that I'm a jazz guy, man. So that 7 Days was on point. That Howl, HOWL, coming from Brian Travis. I played it, I don't know, 100 times. I didn't buy it. I played it. Listen at me. I listen to your stuff for free, guys, and I'm talking about, oh my God, how horrible this is.
That's the thing, man, is that we all have streaming services. That is the way of the future. We have to work within the construct.
I'm a hypocrite. I gotta strike this from the interview. Oh God.
Yeah. Well, I think eventually that what happens for a lot of people is they do listen to music for free online, and then eventually they actually do go and support the artist, either by seeing them live or by buying their physical product if they fall in love with the band.
Well, let me go on record by saying I'm a customer of both of you guys. Let me just, go on record. I'm going to buy their stuff. Okay, so when I put the link in the comment box below, Brian Travis Band, Vector Hold, you buy their stuff too. Okay, that's Brian Travis over there. He's an EntreMusician. That's Pete, DJ Pete down there, Pete Rice, Vector Hold. He's an EntreMusician. My name is Jere B. I'm the EntreMusician, and so are you. We'll see you next time. Guys, thank you so very much.
Thanks, man.
Blessings.